And Hester is going to run it out past the 40 into Giants territory. He is going to go all the way. Touchdown, Chicago.
Trying to find somebody open and throws an interception. And it's Charles Woodson's 55th of his career.
Dives for the touchdown, San Francisco.
I want to play desperately, and I'm going to try to drive everyone nuts till they give me a shot.
Favre threw an almost impossible 336 career interceptions.
See that?
Yeah. We have here the Brett Favre interceptions calendar.
It's the lovable kicking bear doll. And guess what? It comes with its own goalpost. Isn't that neat?
Double doink.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Cut the Cheese, Poke the Bear, Roast the Niner. I'm Urza Master. Joining with me, Lord Uthers and Gold Rush. We are talking NFL action, and we're one game behind in this week 16, 2024 season. Gentlemen, Broncos-Chargers on Thursday Night Football. Does Al Michaels need an excuse to hate Thursday Night Football or something? Because they keep giving him these games. But we have other matchups to talk about. We have some recaps to go over. I have been dying to hear Gold Rush's take on what his Niners are doing here to conclude the season. So, Gold Rush, you take us away this evening. What's going on in San Francisco?
Thank you, Gridiron Greats, and all of you NFL fans who tune in for the hottest takes and the coolest vibes on the 2024 NFL season. The 6-8 Niners had a short week after defeating the Bears to play the division rival Rams, a team that they had given up a late lead to earlier in their meeting, a game that the Niners probably had sewn up and then let unstitched and ended up taking the division loss. So this was a revenge game. It was a short week. It was a rivalry. Pick your headline. It was at home. We had the return of Dre Greenlaw, who had torn his Achilles in the middle of the Super Bowl. There was a lot sort of going, the return of Nick Bosa. There was a lot going on. It was so jam-packed full of storylines. We had a linebacker quit in the middle of the game and decide that he didn't want to report in when they needed him on the field. As a result, he's been suspended for the rest of the season. The Niners are trying to inflict maximum punishment on a guy who, basically waved the white flag. So instead of cutting him, putting him on waivers, allowing another team to step in and sign him and have him get paid, he's just been suspended the final 3 games of the season for conduct unbecoming to the organization, and so he will not collect a paycheck these last 3 games, and then he'll be an unrestricted free agent, I'm sure, in the off season.
Good.
If you're other teams, obviously other teams want to put talent ahead of all else, because if you can tackle and catch and block and kick and all that, then everyone's willing to maybe look past some of your peccadillos. However, it gets around locker rooms pretty quickly. There are usually not too many great reasons that you would quit in the middle of a game. Or in his case, Devondre Campbell was a starter while Dre Greenlaw was recovering and rehabbing his Achilles. And he played 12 out of the first 13 games. He was coming on, according to the coaching staff. Like, he started a little slow, but he was getting more and more, in sync with the defense and making more standalone plays and so forth. And then Dre Greenlaw was declared ready to play, and so he got his starting job back. And since Devondre Campbell has not commented at all as to what went into his decision making, his side of the story, if you will, we're just left to kind of fill it in with the vacuum. And the most obvious plot line is that he was miffed that he was benched for Dre Greenlaw to return. And I don't know if the coaching staff, I don't know how much clearer it would have to be when you have an all-pro, linebacker who gets injured and then gets his way back to the start. He's probably going to get to play a few snaps. So I'm not sure what it is. I guess we should reserve full judgment until we would perhaps hear what, his 50% of the story is. But just on the surface, I don't think if you're a competitor, if you're a coach, a teacher, what have you, I don't think what Devondre Campbell did, he could have expressed his dissatisfaction any number of ways, but he took a very public way to do it. John Lynch, the general manager, apparently just went nuclear on the sidelines with him and so forth. And John Lynch was a fiery player, you'll remember from his Tampa Bay days. And it points up to a culture in the locker room this year, the Super Bowl hangover that everyone wants to give them, the Madden curse. I don't care what you call it. But you've got guys who, again, have been to the NFC title game the last 3 years, who have been to another Super Bowl, 3 out of the last 4 years, or 2 out of the last 4 years. They lost twice to Kansas City, in dispiriting fashion. I think they just need a reset. I think the injuries should not be excused, but they've taken their toll. The defense came out and played the Rams tough. The Rams were held without a first down in the entire first quarter. They kicked 4 field goals to win the game. The Niners offense could only muster 2 field goals. So put as much blame as you want on Brock Purdy and his lack of weapons and so forth. Deebo Samuel had a horrific game, dropping a sure touchdown pass that would have changed the outcome of the third quarter easily, and doing other things. He at one point ran into the running back and blew up a drive just by basically inadvertently tackling Isaac Guerendo, who was trying to go up between the tackles and so forth. It's a lost season for as far as that goes. Forget the postseason. Forget trying to get back to the mountaintop. We've analyzed that and so forth. I want them to play with pride. I want them to play competitively. I did not like watching a 12-6 game, knowing that there was a lot they left on the table, and so forth. And like I said, have they quit on Kyle Shanahan? I don't really get that from listening to the bloggers who cover the team and the reporters. I don't think it's that case. But they need a clean whiteboard. They need to not be playing January and February football. They need to finish this season out. They need to rest and rehab all of their injuries, because the odds are that next season, just by mathematical probabilities, they probably won't see as much players on the IR as they have this season. I mean, it's going to balance out in some fashion. Obviously, everyone takes nicks and dings and so forth, but I would hope that next season that they feel a little healthier, that they have a bad taste in their mouth by missing out on key performances this season, and they can continue to be a competitive squad in both the NFC West and the NFC proper. So that's where I would be there. This week they're playing the Fish. That was Brock Purdy's debut against Miami when he made his start. They're banged up too. Tyreek Hill, I think, is questionable. Waddle is out with injuries. You've got 2 6-8 teams, neither of whom are going to be satisfied with where they are in this season, but both wanting to kind of finish strong and clear the decks for the 2025 campaign. So I think you know who I'm going to go with. I don't want to predict a score. I'll just say that I hope the Niners offense can muster up some actual red zone, end zone productivity. Because the defense against the Rams, again, they held them to 4 field goals. They made plenty of stops. I think individual defenders were playing hard, and shame on Devondre Campbell for not sticking with his teammates. Forget who he's playing for, the city, the fans, the organization, but not showing up for his players out there who are giving their all and putting it on the line and risking injury and doing all that. That's an insult to guys like Javarius Ward and Fred Warner and Tafunga and Nick Bosa and all those guys. It's a slap in the face to your teammates, if nothing else. Don't worry about immediate things, but yeah.
Well, we know one Coach Campbell who would not accept
Yes. No, not the
Any
committee.
Campbell doing something like that. Real quick before I know Urza's biting at the shit. Just give real quick. So the Rams are the only team leading any division or any division with a negative point differential. So they've given up 28 more points than they've scored. So I find that very interesting. And to kind of connect our teams together, they're a Gold Rush in the great city of Chicago, where the Bears rule mighty and supreme. There's talk of trading draft picks for a certain 49er asset by the name of Kyle Shanahan.
Sure, I've heard
So
that.
there has been some talk about that, which I would not like that as a Bears fan, but that's just me.
I mean, I don't know what
Begin with these
maybe you've heard the actual proposals, as crazy as they sound. I don't know what value, like, okay, we're going to give you our head coach. I don't know what in draft picks, what that looks like, right? I mean, what is Kyle Shanahan worth? Is he worth a first round? Is he worth a first round and a second? Like, I don't even know how you, it as a trade. I'm no GM, but I just don't know what that looks like. And like I said, no one questions that Kyle Shanahan can run an offense and call plays and do all that. But, I think Urza Masters brought this up, and you as a coach and a teacher, Lord Uther, you know this well. It just gets to a point sometimes where it doesn't matter, the message, it just stops getting through. Like, they're just tired of hearing it from the same voice. And sometimes, Doug Collins coaching the Bulls, I mean, you had to bring in Phil Jackson. And maybe it was the same thing Doug Collins was saying, but it was Phil Jackson's prism that it was filtered through. And suddenly the Bulls, the light bulb went on. They said, oh, I get it. Defense. I mean, so tough to say. It'll be an interesting off season, but I don't want to limp into it. I'd like to go. They're 6-8. They still have a chance to finish with a winning record. Like, they can play strong these last 2 or 3 games. Then there's something they can hold their hat on for whatever it's worth. But they could also go 6-11, and that's also an equal probability. So we'll see.
It's weird. Like, the 49ers are a good team. They're not bad. You definitely have a locker room issue. And Devondre Campbell was a great Packer. For the 3 seasons he was with us, he did some really good things those first 2. But that last season, he was one of those guys, when they cut him, I'm like, I'm not surprised. He strikes me as kind of a toxic influence in the locker room. And there's no team that's going to pick you up after pulling those kinds of shenanigans. I mean, Ricky Williams had an easier time coming back to the NFL, for crying out loud. I would never sign a player who does that in the game. You don't come back from that. That guy just pissed away his career. I know you can get frustrated as a player. Hot tempers flare on the sidelines when your team's losing, we've seen it with the Bears. We've seen it with the Broncos. We've seen it with a lot of teams. The only other person I've seen this happen to was Antonio Brown. When he just ran off the field in the Jets game. And I'm like, that guy's done. And I think he came back and he played a couple of games for the Bucs. And kudos to Tom Brady. He probably really tried to help that guy. But I don't see Devondre Campbell getting the Antonio Brown treatment. Not at all. And I doubt he's going to drop a rap album that anybody's even going to listen to as a joke. But I will say it's an intriguing prospect to think that, the 49ers saying, okay, we're good with Kyle Shanahan, we need to move on. I don't dislike that idea. I think a regime change is something that can address some of those systemic issues. When you have a good team, you've got a lot of pieces in place. You could win a championship with the roster they have. With a few draft picks coming in, some fresh blood. Maybe pick up a good free agent or 2 to shore up some depth issues. Going into next year with a brand new coach, we've seen it in the NFL before, where guys take over. John Gruden did it. Take over a great team that, had a good coach who, they were contenders, but couldn't ever seal the deal, march right to the Super Bowl. I could see that. I could see that for the 49ers. I could not see that with Kyle Shanahan going to the Bears. Because the Bears don't just have a regime issue, they have a roster issue. I think they have a franchise quarterback. For the first time in a long time, Caleb Williams strikes me as the guy, which is scary. If they can ever figure all of their other problems out and have the guy, they could be a real force. And as a Packer fan, that freaks me out because it's nice owning the Bears. It's nice. There's good perks, nice fringe benefits. That being said, they're a much better team than they get credit for. I do think they have a chance to upend the Lions at home in Chicago. The Lions do look like a beatable team. I know a lot of folks are not going to agree with that, but I challenge you all to go back and watch the vast majority of the games they played this year. They've been pretty close, and it's been some mess up by the other team or a very late possession, and that's the only reason they won those games. Vikings are the same way. They're both 12-2. I think the Seahawks are going to shock the Vikings this week. It's hard to win in Seattle. I don't know how Green Bay made them look like a high school team. I really don't. Not having Geno Smith is going to be tough, but the kid they had in there, he just kind of looked like a deer in the headlights. I don't think he was prepared to take over for Geno. He's had time to prepare now. I don't think he's not a bad quarterback. He can game manage just like Geno Smith. For crying out loud, it's Geno Smith. We're not talking about Steve Young taking over for Joe Montana here. This is Geno Smith, and John Q. quarterback could fill in. Number 23 from Tecmo Bowl could step in there. I think it's really not. I don't know. It's not what it seems. Paper Tigers. I think the Packers are the real deal, though. Like I said, it's hard to win in Seattle ever. And to go in and do what we did was inspiring football. I look forward to the matchup with the Saints in Green Bay on Christmas Eve. That late Monday game is going to be awesome to watch. I'm going to be honest, though. The Saints, they always seem to pull something weird off late in the season. And they're a better team than people give them credit for. So I don't want it to be a trap. We have not done well at home this year. We need to win this game. We need to win it big. We need to come out tough and come out of the game looking like tough monsters of above the midway. Because I tell you what, it's getting to be crunch time. We're looking to come in on a wild card, which I love the Packers on a wild card. When we come in top seed in the NFC, we all seem to eat too much turkey at Gilbert Brown's mom's house the night before the game, and we lose the first week of the playoffs. So I'm looking forward to it. I love coming in with that chip on our shoulder, that best division in football, but we're not 12-2. We're I don't even know what our record is, 9-3, something like that. But how about the other matchups this week? I'm looking at the matchups we got coming up this weekend, and I'm going to be honest, the only watchable game I see is Eagles-Commanders. That should be a barn burner. Nothing else strikes me as something that you should bother watching, aside from your own chosen team. Uther, I know you want to talk Bears, but can we start there? What about these other matchups? What's going on with this AI-built NFL schedule?
I hope the Bucks just beat the snot out of Dallas. I don't know. Well, I keep saying, right, I'm so happy for Baker Mayfield because Cleveland did him so wrong. So wrong. And I just want to see Dallas lose. So it would be a great night. I want to see Aaron Rodgers keep, losing, so I wouldn't mind see that happen. I don't know why. He just rubs me the wrong way. I don't know what it is, but I'm just not. Maybe it's the shining aura of a Brett Favre that continues to stay in my brain that I can't let Aaron Rodgers have any props or any love. Let's talk about the Vikings just real quick. Good team or bad lucky team?
Bad lucky team.
Hey,
That's
they
it.
beat us, so what can I say? But go ahead. You cover the North.
They're bad. They're a bad team. They are a lucky bad team. They've won a lot of games at the last second on a field goal or a late touchdown. I'm not saying, look, I know every Vikings fan. I live in Minnesota. I know every Vikings fan around me is like, these stupid Packer fans don't know shit about football. Look, they have gotten lucky this season on the vast majority of their wins. Now, have they played some good teams and won? Absolutely, they have. Have they also played some really bad teams or teams that are good in like a really bad day for them? You betcha they have. To be honest, the NFC North this year, I think, has had a pretty soft schedule. I will say that NFC West matchups against the Seahawks and the Cardinals, those are the ones that count. I think those are the two tough teams that everybody in the NFC North has had to play this year outside of each other. And that's just the NFC, honestly. The AFC matchups we've had this year throughout the NFC North, they're hit or miss. But by and large, the Vikings have just gotten lucky. They do have good players. They have an okay coach. I'm not sold on their coach because I've seen that same coach do a lot of boneheaded things. I have absolutely no faith in their quarterback play. I know they got rid of Courtney Crubbins, but new guy. Best of luck to him. But I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. I don't think they have a franchise player. For years they didn't have a quarterback, but they had Adrian Peterson. Before that, who do they really have? Dante Culpepper was really the last guy in Minnesota, and I don't know that you can have a leader in the locker room consistently who isn't the quarterback or a very explosive defensive player, and they don't have either. Their defense is solid, and I know stats are stats, blah, blah, blah. I look at the matchups. I don't give a crap what it says on paper. They're beatable. Detroit is too. I think Detroit is the better team of the two. I think they've also gotten lucky this year, and I think they're beatable. And I think we showed that when we played them. And honestly, I think the Bears could beat them. I think the Seahawks could beat the Vikings. I think any team in football could beat either of those teams. It's just about controlling your mistakes. The problem is a lot of these teams this year have been making a lot of boneheaded mistakes at the wrong time. And a solid team, which is what I would call the Vikings or the Lions, a solid team will take advantage. They don't have to be exceptional, just solid.
Yeah, so I'll ask you guys a quick Bear question because that's how much I really want to talk about the Bears right now. We know they're going to burn it to the ground. There's talk of getting rid of polls. Like there's whatever. It's been so overhyped here, and we know that. To Gold Rush's point, I mean, bloggers are listening to this podcast to get all their ideas anywhere. But or maybe I could just use Madden Football to predict it all out. But my real question is, did the Bears make a mistake by not going after Bill Belichick?
I think I read the analysis of why he ended up going with Carolina, and I think everyone was like, Bill Belichick in a room full of college recruits and so forth. Like, what's that going to look like? I think he was tired. The way the article came at it, and it was a pro Belichick slant in the article. I think he just had it with the constraints of the NFL per se, in terms of messaging and so forth, and the ownership with Bob Kraft and all of that. I think he really wanted to hit the reset button, and he wanted his voice in the room, no matter, whether it was pro players or college players. He wanted his voice to be the only one that they were really tuned into, not social media, not ESPN Bet, not Stephen A. Smith. And I think, North Carolina was willing to overpay and, to make a big grab for a guy who's never coached in college before. And it is a completely different game and a completely different experience. I think the Bears could have offered him, the same amount of money, more money. They could have given him control of the organization, Bill Parcells model and so forth. But I think he just literally wanted to teach the game his own way. And he wanted to do it where it was an environment where there literally, there wasn't going to be, North Carolina sports bloggers are not going to go chasing after him with pitchforks and torches. But if he started out 0-4 in the Bears next season as their coach, Chicago AM radio would light him up. Just as you would expect any coach to start 0-4 and so forth. So I think he wanted a change. I think he wanted to do football as pure as it could be. And so he chose college. I don't think he had his heart set on North Carolina. I think North Carolina just said, hey, what do you want? You can have it. Sign this piece of paper and it's yours. And to a man of his age and experience, he's probably like, all right, I'll do it.
That's probably exactly what he said, too. That's very Bill Belichick.
Let me just ask a quick follow-up question to Gold Rush and then Urza. If Belichick gets the Bears job, let's just pretend, because everyone has a price. I'm sorry. I just truly believe everyone has a price. If the Bears paid me $1 million, I would go be their GM. But anyway, if he gets the job, does he change the organization in the next, I know he's 72. Let's just say the next 3 years. Is he getting him on a path to being a successful team? And then we'll pass it over to Urza.
I think the best thing he could have done, you would have had to look beyond wins and losses and X's and O's. I think he could have tried to bring some of that Patriot way, some of that culture that he fostered. He could have tried to teach guys old tricks with new methods and tried to get them, the Bears as an organization, to be a consistent winner, you have to learn how to win consistently. And I think, are we talking Super Bowls? I don't know. Are we talking playoff appearances? More than likely. And really just trying to build a culture of belief, not self-doubt or, all of that. That probably would have been one of his strengths, was just trying to get the focus off of, we're the Bears, we keep kicking ourselves and stepping on rakes, to something a little bit more, focused. And maybe they would have been the best, 10-6 team in the league. But they would have played hard probably, and some of these close games that eluded them this season would probably have been W's the other way. So I think that's the best you could have hoped for, to be honest. I don't know that you could have been polishing new rings, but you would have had a change in culture, I think, more so than a John Fox or a Matt Eberflus or so forth. Bill Belichick has the gravitas and the credibility, like Phil Jackson did coaching the Lakers after the Bulls, to be able to say, I'm going to listen to this guy. He's been on top of the mountain. He knows what the view is like.
Urza?
No, I don't think Bill Belichick turns around the Chicago Bears. I don't think he has the clout. There'd be a lot of hype. That's all it would be. I truly believe that. I don't think it would be his fault. I think he would do what was within his power. I don't think the McCaskies give him the full control he would need to clean house. Because it'd be bad for business. And that's unfortunately, I think, what you need to do, is you kind of need a hard reboot, and that's going to be tough to sell tickets for. And you probably do. And I think Bill Belichick would be honest and say, look, we're probably not going to have a winning season our first go-around, because we're going to reboot everything. We got to reboot our scheme. We'll probably change up our defensive scheme, whole new front office, probably mostly a new roster. cut most of the veteran guys. Any kind of chaff you can shake off. And anybody who's locked into a bad deal that we have to suffer through, we're going to have to suffer through. And they're going to know that we're suffering through. And we're not going to mince words. It's like you're gone. When you're done, you're gone. I see Bill Belichick being a hard ass like that because he would want to build in the short term at his age a winning culture, winning franchise. It would not work. I think he would probably earn the respect of the players, but there would be enough voices in that locker room who would be just upset with everything he's doing that they would tear themselves apart because they don't have a good culture there right now, and that it's hard to do what you need to do to build a good team without rebuilding the culture first. And I don't think Belichick has the time to build a culture. I think he has time to build a team, front office, because you can do that quickly, 2-3 years. Cultures take years. You have great fans, dedicated fans. They love their franchise, thick and thin. Detroit Lions fans, same way. You know, they deserve what they're getting now because they've been rebuilding since 1952. You know, the Bears, it's been a long time. Next year's going to be 40 years. But come on, 40 years since they've won, I should say. They were back not that long ago, 22 years ago. They were in the Super Bowl. So, look, it's a long drought, but it's not that long. And you could get to that defensive-minded, monsters of the midway, hard-ass, culture again by not cleaning house. You just have to really invest in getting the right personnel. And that takes a lot more time than I think, and this is the problem with Chicago. They don't give the people time, and they don't pick the right people. Like Eberflus is not the answer. But if you pick the right head coach, you pick the right GM or GM head coach, which I think is the best option to do this cultural shift, to get to where you want to be in Chicago, you gotta take 5-10 years to do it. You might get to the playoffs here and there, might have some winning years, you might even win the division. Probably no Super Bowls in that time, unless you get lucky, but in that span of time, to have a few winning seasons, maybe get a division title, you're going to turn around a culture that is eating itself right now because nobody has the right answer. And nobody has. They've gone through head coaches, they've gone through quarterbacks, they've gone through defenses. The only guy I think that could step in and make an immediate splash, God rest his soul, is Denny Green. I just feel like that guy he could turn a mayonnaise sandwich into a T-bone steak. Like that I don't know what it is about that guy, but he turned around some shit franchises. He did it to the Cardinals. The Cardinals were terrible. And, he was who we thought he was. He was a great miracle worker. Well, gentlemen, I think we know our picks. We're probably homers this week, but just to run it down again. Gold Rush, who do you got? Niners, Dolphins. Niners it is. Lord Uther?
Oh, Niners.
I'm taking the Dolphins at home.
What about Tua Tagovailoa?
I don't know how he's still alive. I feel
I don't
so
even know how to
bad
say his
for that
name.
guy.
So, I mean, hey.
Tua Tagovailoa, play
That
safe, my friend. Put on a Titan helmet or two. I don't want to see the guy get hurt anymore. I hate every time I tune into that game. I swear to God, he's stretchered out. I'm like, man, you can only watch Joe Theismann get hurt so many times. Not that he's Joe Theismann, not by a long shot. Lions, Bears, Lord Uther, who you got?
See, and I'm taking the Lions. I think the Bears have quit. I think the players are done. They've just quit on the season.
Gold Rush, how you feel about that one?
I wasn't able to get Lord Uther that Porsche he wanted for Christmas, so I'll give him this instead. I'll go on the camera and say, I'm going to root for the Bears this week, just for you, Lord Uther, and I hope there's a present under the tree for me next year.
I'm taking the Bears. Like I said, I think the Lions are beatable, and I think the Bears are pissy enough that they're going to pull out a win against probably the best team in football.
This is their Super Bowl. So.
This is their Super Bowl. This is kind of like the Lions on Thanksgiving Day. And Saints at Packers, I'm taking the Packers. I think it's going to be a good win, a tough win. I don't think it's going to be as easy as Seattle was, and Seattle should not have been easy. But I think we managed to pull off a 2-score win over a Saints team that's going to come in with some fury. Gentlemen, how do you feel about that matchup?
Packers.
The paper bags come back for Saints fans, the Aints. So.
Ooh, I do love the Aints. I do love teasing Aints fans about being the Aints. Well, the match of the WEAK this week, I am going to point at the Jaguars and the Raiders.
Just cancel the game. I mean,
I don't.
It's a push.
I think I picked the Raiders, but I don't know why. They're at home.
Oh yeah, I'm taking Raiders just because they're at home. I was gonna say, tell me the home team.
Sin City. Yeah.
So that's your match of the week. If you love NFL action, tune in every week, pending rebrand through the NFL season. We will be here cutting the cheese, poking the bear, roasting the Niner with the Lord Uther, the Gold Rush, Urza Master. From us to you, have a very happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all the other holidays I'm probably forgetting because I celebrate Christmas and, I'm a homer. That's why I pick the Packers every game. Y'all have a great time. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.